cold out here.
Yeah, it is. It's like the South Pole.
It's like the deep South Pole, if there was one. There isn't, though.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Underrated Podcast. This is a brand new podcast where we discuss films that we feel are underrated or perhaps underappreciated or even ones that just slipped under the radar that passed most people by. This show is a collaboration of friends, and together we are the Undercast Company. I just want to make a special shout out before we start our formal podcast, in that we're recording this at about the 1 year anniversary of our creating the Undercast Company and joining forces,
really?
And becoming the Megazord that we are.
Holy crap.
Yeah, it was about a year ago. We all got together and were like, let's do this shit.
I feel like it was just months ago.
Yeah, I'm saying.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Time flies when you're
recording podcasts.
Recording podcasts and just watching underrated movies.
Yeah. So, with that,
Hey, chat, clip that.
Today's episode is about Just Friends. It is a 2005 comedy Christmas movie with Ryan Reynolds, Amy Smart, Anna Faris, and Chris Klein, to name a few. For me, this movie was one of my go-to funny movies during Christmas time, when I was, going on 14 years ago. And so, with that, we shall discuss why it's underrated.
Yeah.
All right, let's do it. Who wants to go first?
I guess I'll shoot.
Let's do it.
Why is it underrated? I'm gonna say is because it's Ryan Reynolds, and
This was
right
after Van Wilder.
That's what I was
and
gonna
all
say.
Oh, man.
That's why.
The rise of Van Wilder, Ryan Reynolds himself.
And I'm assuming people didn't take him seriously. It was he was doing funny comedy movie, funny haha movies, and not super maybe well known for other stuff. And I'm assuming that's the reason why it's underrated. I mean, it's a good comedy. Don't get me wrong. That's what it is, a comedy. But as always, comedies aren't always the blockbusters that make the cash.
Mm.
So that's why I'm
especially
on
today, comedies are like, at least this kind of comedy, it's pretty much non-existent.
Yeah, I agree with that, because that type of comedy was very. It's a 2000s thing.
Yeah,
I'll be real. Like Van Wilder, Just Friends,
the Judd Apatow. Well, even though they're not Judd Apatow movies,
like
it's that same kind of style.
Yeah, there's like this. It's kind of like there's just something to it where you look at it and go, yeah, this came out like the 2000s. Like you just have that feeling. But yeah, I agree with that.
Yep.
So, for me, yeah, I think it leads from that Van Wilder situation. Ryan Reynolds was this was fresh off of Van Wilder, and it's that kind of comedy. But for me, with this latest rewatching of it, I found that it's actually besides it being very funny, it has these certain little moments that are in the background that just add more humor to it. There's one scene where when he gets thrown out of the bar towards the end, and the bartender, after he's throws him out, and he's and just stay out. While he's walking away, he kind of lowly says, "I've always wanted to say that." And then so with this rewatch, there's kind of all these funny moments that it takes a couple of watches to catch on to, and it makes it a lot more funnier. So I felt that's was pretty well thought out of too.
Yeah. Well, you guys don't mind? I'm gonna just dive into my kind of full review here, because I do like this movie. I've always I think I liked it a lot more watching it this time than I usually have, because for me, this is always that movie that was on Comedy Central a million times. Growing up, being a teenager, this movie was always fucking on Comedy Central. You'd pick it up and be halfway through the movie. I didn't really know how this movie started until a couple of years after I first saw it, because you were just flipping channels late at night. Oh, it's on, and it'd be one of those late night Comedy Central movies where they're uncensored. You can hear Ryan Reynolds say the F word, and you're fucking cool. I'm gonna watch that. But yeah, it is. I do catch a lot of subtleties, like you were saying, Ariel, that I'd never really caught before. I think there's a lot of really good supporting characters in this. Obviously, Ryan Reynolds and Anna Faris and Amy Smart all kill it, but the cast, the supporting cast, is really fucking funny and hilarious. Like, I love these two friends that are a couple, but it is very, very, like we were saying, 2005. It is definitely feels like there's no other time this movie could be. It is a little dated in some points, but I do like that it is a very, very self-aware movie. Like, it's like, this is kind of a dumb comedy, but it knows that, it plays into it. It kind of like is almost a parody of a lot of those tropes. It like goes along with it. One of my favorite.
It kind of like a parody of like and playing off of like National Lampoon, like a Christmas vacation.
Yeah, and I like that it kind of plays on the trope of it's these two people and their friends, and usually those kind of movies, like at the end of the movie, he'd be like, "Oh, I'm in love with you," even though they're friends. There's a million movies like that where the friends get together at the end. This kind of subverts that by having that happen as like the beginning, as the prologue for the actual movie. So you get that right out of the way, and then it's like, then it kind of develops into this whole other thing. And I really like that it just kind of, it's all about like real emotions trumping the kind of fake bullshit that you put on, trying to be the person they want and game playing. Like, it's all about like how that's bullshit, and really you should just be yourself. And if the person is right for you, then they'll be with you.
Yeah, I think going off of that is kind of like breaking the trope, because usually that character where the friend that confesses his love, it's always like he's like someone like welcomed in open arms to like the whole community, and the whole community is like backing him up and stuff. Where in this one, like from the start, like he does the confession, and everybody is like laughing at him and stuff like that, and then even coming back to his hometown, like, he's the main character. He's supposed to be like, in quotations, like the hero character, and he just gets completely shit on by everyone and anything, like in the small town that he's from. And so I think playing on that was a very funny way, and like, I mean, Ryan Reynolds is killing it with the comedy and stuff like that, and in a very Ryan Reynolds way that I think it's
because you see him be the cool guy. First he's a nerd, right?
Yeah.
For example, he tries it out, it doesn't work out. So you would assume that when he comes back as a cool guy, which he shows you, because in LA he's this cool guy, he's dropping women left and right, it's all working out for him. You think now he's going to come back as a cool guy. In a normal movie, as a cool guy, he would show off his coolness, and then at the end he wins the girl. And here he tries to show off his coolness, but at every turn something goes wrong, and that's where you get that comedy, that funniness that you're not used to at the time. Mm-hmm. At the time when the movie came out, because you're so used to everybody. Oh my God, look at the transformation! You went from ugly duckling to a beautiful swan, and now you're like, oh man, this guy deserves everything. And here he comes out he rents the Porsche to try to be cool, and then they crap on him there. He tries to show off the ice skating, but he gets like crappy skates and he can't do it. Then his teeth get messed up, and he's back in a retainer again. And all of a sudden, he goes from being on the top dog to being back on the bottom where he was right before he left the town. And that is, but they do it in a humorous way, so you don't feel like, oh man, poor guy, he's reliving this thing again. And
because you kind of hate him too at the beginning, like
you do, because he
deserves it.
He completely became the guy that he didn't want to be. Yeah, the guy that was like, bullying him, making him feel bad, and he's teaching other people to be the same way. Like, no man, you can't care. You shouldn't be this. You should be like that. You should be aloof. You should. It's just about getting women and racking numbers and things like that, kind of for him. Yeah. But then eventually he falls back in love with a girl that he's always wanted, and then all the shenanigans happen. And then him having the younger brother.
Oh my God, I love the brother. Being one of the great supporting characters.
And not just the brother, but having the mom be so aloof to everything adds to the humor that they do, because it's just it's this beautiful dynamic between the brother and the mom, going with Ryan Reynolds' humor, and they just bouncing off each other completely the whole time. Whenever they're all together, it's just funny, because it kind of gives you this familiar feeling of, this is what it would be like if I was at home with my mom and my brother, and then you guys are saying little inside kind of jokes, and your mom's kind of like, well, what's going on? What? It's a little familiarity that makes a movie go a long way. Yeah.
I mean, coming from us being, Derek, being Mexican, you could get it. You could come into this too. I'm sure.
He lives in Southern California as well.
It's just a very much like the dynamic between Ryan Reynolds and his brother is just so familiar to anybody.
Oh yeah,
You
that's
kinda,
how I'm with
have
my
those-
brothers.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard stories. Yeah.
You don't need to make this into a race thing.
I know. I'm sorry.
Race wars.
No. I'm sure it's among everybody. I'm sorry. I apologize formally.
Only Mexicans will understand this Canadian film.
About white people.
But no, so like it's just a very familiar kind of like, you just like you slap your brother or sister like one moment, and then you're like, I love you too.
Yeah, that was so spot on. Like that's exactly how I was with my brothers growing up, even to this day, kind of. But like one thing I wanted to kind of go off of what you were saying, Fred, about how you're like, oh, he's like this cool guy, and then he's like, oh, this isn't working, and then he tries to go the other way. He's like, oh, I've got to be, like, and I think he says like the biggest pussy or whatever. Like he's like, I've got to like, go and be like exactly like I was in high school, and like that's not working either because it's still not him. No. It's who he's just trying to be who he wants to be. And at the beginning, he just wants to sleep with the girl that got away. She's not even like the girl he used to like. Mm-hmm. She's just this idea of the one that got away. And we all have the one that got away, But he's like, oh, I'm going to get her because I never got to sleep with her in high school when I was a loser, and I'll be cool and I'll validate myself. But by the end of the movie, that's not what he's about. He's not about like, he's fallen back in love with her just like he was in high school. He's not like in love with just sleeping with this idea of this girl. He is really in love with this girl again.
I think I have to disagree with the whole like him just wanting to sleep with her kind of thing, because like the moment that he sees her at the bar, like the way that he says her name, like it's just totally like it's a relapse of his love kind of like coming back.
Well, I think maybe it's under the surface.
Yeah,
like his
he tries to convince himself like, oh yeah, I just want to like have sex with her, and then one a hit and done kind of thing. Yeah. But yeah.
Yeah, because he doesn't really like that shows a lot of him as a character, and those are the things that I really admire about this movie. Is because if you look past all the lack of identity and like there's a lot of movies that came out around this era that were like this, and it's just another Comedy Central movie that you'd see. There is a lot of cool things that it does with this with Ryan Reynolds as a character, and because you guys were talking about how at first he one thing he becomes the person that he used to hate when he was still in high school, because those are the kinds of people that used to bully him and treat women, the way that he does now. And then there's the other thing of, oh, she's not even another girl that he used to like now. It's just another girl in his life. I like that because it shows that there is some sort of character. He doesn't want to admit to himself that he really does like her. And the reality is that he kind of hates himself for what he's doing. That's why he went through that whole transformation process and why he's trying to radically change himself. So I thought that was cool. And those little things as a character, like character studying Ryan Reynolds' character. I'm saying character a lot, but those are the little things that I like about this movie.
Well, I mean, that's the thing that I was going to say. Like I understand the character because in the sense of before he does his change, right? And I think this happens to a lot of men. You tend to overcompensate maybe on your gentlemanness, thinking that you need to be like the perfect gentleman every time.
Guy.
Yeah, the super nice guy.
And there's a comedy to find in that too.
Yeah,
that's why I think
but no, what I'm saying, but
works.
like what makes sense is when he changes, he instead of thinking like, well, what wasn't working or what should I change or how should I be, you tend to have this idea, and it happens to males, that women aren't dating me not because of how nice I was, but more like how people want to be the bad guy, how you got to be cool, and how the way you're supposed to treat that whole friend zone thing, that concept of like, oh, it's because I was friended, and that's why it's not going to change. Instead of being like, well, it's because this person, even though I might feel attracted to them or have feelings for them, they just don't reciprocate those feelings. Instead of thinking that way, you think, no, it's because I got put in the friend zone. I see what kind of guys they like. They like the bad boys, the ones that treat them like crap, because you hear them complain. Yeah.
Why do the good girls always fall for the bad guys?
Yeah, and that's a concept.
Gwen, is that you?
That's where a lot of the comedy comes from too, because we as an audience member, that's stupid.
Yeah,
and this is just an extreme version of it.
You know what? If you watched it, I want to say if you watched it at the time when it came out, if you're about that age, it probably really hits home.
Very of its time.
Because you're in high school times and things like that, so it would probably hit more more home in the idea of like, oh, I get where he's coming from. I see what it is. As an older person now, you know, it's a lot more funnier than anything.
Mm-hmm.
But at that age, you were probably like, oh shit, yeah, I know what this feels like. Oh, being put in like being a lamp, a non-sexual object. Oh fuck yeah, I know what it's like to be friended. Oh, this shit sucks. Oh, poor guy. Like you feel for him. You go, fucking poor guy, dude. I've been there. But then, you know, as he grows and he becomes a cool guy, you're like, yeah, I could see that happening. I could see doing that. Mm-hmm. I could try to be this fucking cool guy who doesn't give a shit and just kind of goes around and you just, you know, laying pipe anywhere and stuff like that. Because that happens. Hell, I've even done that.
Well, humbrag right here.
No, not a humble brag like that. But I'm saying like I've gotten to the point where, and I don't know if every male does, but I've gotten to the point where you go, you know what? It doesn't pay off to be a cool guy, a nice guy, you know, like that. Nah. You gotta be the guy that doesn't care, that's just like whatever. And fuck it if it doesn't work sometimes.
Yeah.
But it only works because you're trying to find that type of person. You're not finding a serious relationship or things like that.
But I mean, like, why do good girls like bad guys?
Exactly. But I think that's where you go with the movie at the end. Like, he wasn't finding the right people because he was acting this way he acted. When he finally figures out who he is inside, what kind of person he is, it finally works out for him in the way of he can finally make the relationship that he always wanted.
Yeah, because this could have been like a kind of problematic movie, but they actually managed to do a really like good like job with it, you know.
So maybe going off of this wide variety of supporting characters that we have, let's get to the Anna Faris of it all and talk about her character, Samantha James.
She's great. I was gonna say I always find her hilarious. I don't know about you guys, but I always find her funny. All the way from the scary movies and all the other stuff she does, I just think she has this comedic chops, I guess is a good thing.
She's very like she just doesn't really care. Like she's just kind of like, fuck it, dude. I'm doing this just because like she has a good time with it. I feel like in the 2000s, like especially like this type of film, I feel like Scary Movie and this one, and then I know she did a couple other things. She was super aloof and she just had a good time with things. Like, because I mean, especially the Scary Movie films where she's just like,
it's like absurdist, and she
like it's absurd, and she's just having a good time. And this one was just, especially the opening scene where she's all like fucked up and all that stuff. Like she's just like, she's giving it her all, but also having a good time with it.
Yeah, and she's a really good foil for Ryan Gosling, who's hilarious in a really... Oh my god, I always do that.
Subconsciously said that.
I do subconsciously think about Ryan Gosling a lot. But Ryan Reynolds, he's so deadpan in this movie. He's like got that different kind of like deadpan. Like he'll say something like really subtly and it'll be hilarious, where she's like going so over the top, and they play against each other really fucking well. And like she also plays really well against Amy Smart, who's also kind of like more deadpan and even keeled, whereas her and a couple other characters are just like these over the top hilarious people.
And I like going off of that. I like how you do have that dynamic that she gets to play off of just the deadpan of Ryan Reynolds, especially with those scenes where he's dragging her to the car, and like he's like, you know what, you're right, like this, and she's like, no, I'm not right, like I did, and just busts out. But then she also gets to play with the over the top character with his brother too, who is also over the top. And one of my favorite scenes in this is like when she starts laughing at Ryan Reynolds, and like the brother kind of like does this like barrel roll onto the bed next to her and starts laughing with her too. And it's
that was such a good little moment.
Yeah, it's like going on. Yeah, like those small moments that play to add this like comedy, an additional layer of comedy that's really funny. But yeah, I just loved her embodiment of just the most craziest woman that you could.
Yeah, she's like Paris Hilton cranked up a little bit.
Yeah,
like a Britney Spears, Paris Hilton.
Yeah, like, a very 2005 Britney Spears.
Yeah, and it's hilarious.
Not 2007, thankfully.
Yeah. No, but it's hilarious because then it's like when she's in the airplane, and she goes, I asked for mahi mahi tuna, but I'm on a diet, so I just got one mahi. and then she proceeds to put it in the airplane microwave
with the tinfoil,
and goes, well, they didn't say you couldn't put it in without tinfoil. So it's it kind of sets up for where she's at, and it just makes it hilarious the whole time. I mean, it's all you can say. Like, she is just hilarious throughout the whole damn movie.
And
every scene she had.
And then the taser that she brings into in both instances just make these hilarious moments. But yeah, no, I want to actually talk about deleted scene, like if you watch like one of the deleted scenes, to her story is actually kind of funny. Is that in one of the deleted scenes, like so she leaves Ryan Reynolds from the small town and goes back to Hollywood, and then she ends up making actually a fantastic breakup CD where she's very artistic and because her heart got broken and stuff, and then so when Ryan Reynolds comes back, he finds out all about this and like, oh man, you did your job, awesome job and stuff, and then I guess Alanis Morissette comes, and at the time of the filming, like Ryan Reynolds and Alanis Morissette were actually dating. And so she just slaps him like, "How dare you?" Because he's the one that broke her heart. But she ended up creating this like amazing CD.
Huh.
So that's one of the funnier things too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, I think it's overall. I'd say I really liked it. Alan, did you liked it, right? I want to hear what because you haven't gone too in depth into it. I want to hear.
Oh man, so I am excruciatingly picky with comedies. Like I fucking hate most comedies.
This
like,
is true.
90% of the time. Like I despise them, especially. I know we're talking about the 2000s era, but like a lot of them I hated, and that's what kind of made me like go into like the hate of like just in general. But this one was solid. I mean, if it wasn't for like Anna Faris and like Ryan Reynolds, I probably would have overlooked it. I remember again watching it on Comedy Central and being like, all right, it's on, whatever. Because I would always watch like Dogma because it would always put Dogma on repeat. And I was like, all right, I'll watch Just Friends. And it was good. Like I enjoyed it. I was like, okay, it's not like a movie that I would go rewatch all the time. It's just a movie where I'm like, yeah, I enjoyed it for what it was.
Yeah, I think I'm on about the same page.
Yeah, like I'm not like, oh man, we gotta watch it tonight. We gotta pop Just Friends in. It's kind of one of those like throwaways for me, where like I'll watch it. And I'm like, okay, that's it.
When it comes on Comedy Central, I'll watch it. But like it's not a movie that I'm like telling everybody about. But I like it.
Yeah, I mean, like if it's there, I'll watch it.
Yeah,
I'll give it a watch.
It's a good movie. I'm talking about how much I like it this whole time. But yeah.
Yeah, for me, it's on like the rotation of Christmas movies. So it's but then again, I do watch a lot of Christmas movies during Christmas time. So, but I think for me, it is worth at least the initial watch. So yeah.
Yep. So then, why do you guys think this movie did so poorly with critics? It's like Ariel, I think you said 42% on Rotten Tomatoes.
It's like mid ground. It's like a 6.2. 47, but
is that 6.2 IMDb?
IMDb.
Oh, okay.
47 on Metacritic. So I think it's just because what we've talked about, probably because like Ryan Reynolds, it was like seen possibly as another Ryan Reynolds comedy, and
yeah, those mid 2000 comedies did get ragged on by critics a bunch.
Oh yeah,
I mean that was a tough part. It seems like you always get waves of stuff. You got some years where everybody loves comedies. Some years they hate comedies.
Yeah.
Some years they love dramas. Some years it just depends on where the movie falls. And this one tends to fall in a pack of. I feel like there were a lot of comedies at the time.
It was really oversaturated.
Yeah, and if it wasn't good enough to like fly in your face, it ends up becoming more of a cultish type comedy where you end up watching it kind of like Old School or Step Brothers or things where at the time, they did not do well at all. They don't do well, but over time, as people watch them, as you kind of learn the quotes, the little favorite parts and things like that, it just kind of ends up becoming a little better than it was. Yeah. But it's never going to have that critical acclaim, ever.
It's like that word of mouth thing.
Yeah.
Because Old School, I remember at the time, oh my fucking, I've never seen it. I'll get to it one day. But I've never seen it, but I kind of call those years like the like from the year 2000 to like 2006, 7ish. I call it like the college comedies. Yeah. Where like like mid to late 90s, you had all these high school like comedies, like romantic comedies, and then it seems like when the 2000s came in, those graduated into college, where you'd hear Sum 41 in the trailer almost every single time.
Why is Matt Damon in this band?
All that stuff, yeah. And I honestly think it's because it's just that they're very niche, that they're going for a certain audience. Like I honestly think like around that time, like Just Friends and Not Another Teen Movie and Van Wilder and Malibu's Most Wanted, all those kind of movies were geared towards people who enjoyed the high school comedies of the 90s and are graduating on into the 2000s, into like these type of films where they're kind of like, this is my own opinion, but they're kind of throwaways where like, hey, what's the next thing we can get into the box office? Like what or to the movies, what we can make some quick money on kind of thing. I'm not saying Just Friends is that, but it's in that criteria. And then after that, it became the Judd Apatow stuff. Like that's where that humor has evolved into. But I think that's the reason why it was critically panned. It's just the same thing with horror, which in that time as well. Horror films in that time were like very throwaways where I was like, some of these are not that great, and but I think that's just my theory.
Yeah, that makes sense because like nowadays there's been very few comedies. Like there's been all these think pieces about how comedy is like a dying genre and blah blah blah, and
I think with
pure comedy.
Yeah. Oh, pure comedy.
And where you have something like Booksmart this year, which is a pretty solid movie, but it did terribly financially, but critically everybody fucking loved it because there's not that movies like it anymore. If like Booksmart had come out 10 years ago, it would have been just a movie that everybody.
But yeah, what Alan was saying about it's similar to what is happening with horror movies or what has happened with horror movies, and I think it will continue to happen. It's that certain influx of those same kind of movies that create this certain lack of identity, and I think for me personally, that's what really caused this movie because and especially with the title too, and it's starring Ryan Gosling. Ryan
Got him,
Reynolds.
man. I loved Ryan Reynolds in Drive.
No.
Am I right, guys?
Right.
Ryan Reynolds, and it's very much, it has a lack of identity, and because there's a lot of other movies that are of this same genre, and I think as time goes on, movie like this movie Just Friends, it kind of is still standing, while other movies of its time and of its genre, like Alan was saying, the college comedies we're starting to forget about them. This movie is still being remembered by us because we actually liked it, and it still holds up to this day. But at the time, it was just produced and put out in a way where it was just grouped along with those kinds of comedies.
Nobody's going back and rewatching Euro Trip in 2019.
No.
Exactly, yeah. Oh, what I was going to say, though, is I feel like that type of comedy, though, does very well on television.
Yes.
Because, like, this type of comedy style, like college, like the college comedy kind of thing, like Van Wilder, Just Friends and all that, does very well on TV, especially one of me and Fred's one of our favorite shows, Blue Mountain State. Fucking amazing
that
show.
was so good.
Hilarious. I love it. Like, I always go back to that show. Alan Richardson is like that kind of Ryan Reynolds type of character in that show. And I feel like that's where that type of humor flourishes, is in television.
Some secret Stephen Amell in there too.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Oh, yeah, boy.
Isn't it?
Yeah, but it's just because they do, like I said, the lack of identity. It also is attributed from how flat it looks, and that's why it's like a TV movie.
Yeah.
But, So a lot of it just really relies on the acting and the writing and the jokes. Of course, it's a comedy; it has to be funny.
And I could really see, I know it's already starting to happen. I think it's going to be more prevalent is movies like, because you were saying like this is a TV movie. These movies like this not really being theatrical release, moving to Netflix, Hulu, like those kind of original movies. Like probably Disney Plus now we're going to see that it's going to become like that's where all the romantic comedies and like the teen comedies are going to move onto these streaming services because they're built to be like where you have the best audience for this as like a TV throw on just Friends is on Netflix, it's Christmas, throw it on.
Yeah, it's like having like for example like Big Mouth or things of that nature where normally you would watch them maybe on I don't know, like Fox maybe or something something at late night. Yeah, now a lot of those things are getting, like you said, just right on Netflix, man. Let's go, and then that's where you're gonna watch.
So then, do you guys think that this movie's reputation is going to change with it being on Netflix? And it had to have over the years has gotten a lot, more people like it. Do you guys see that continuing?
I think it's still gonna be the same. It is like a cult kind of movie. Mm-hmm. You're gonna. Depending on the time, maybe if comedies are really in, people might check it out. They might scope it out more. But I think it's still going to be the same. It's a cult movie. It's going to have its following, like solid following that are just going to go back and watch it, and it might gain a little bit of people here and there. But I don't think it's going to be some kind of cult thing like I don't know, like Rocky Horror or like the Evil Dead series or things like that keep amassing people as years go on. I just think it's going to be where it's at, and it'll have its fans that follow it. Maybe people that want to see another Ryan Reynolds movie, his older stuff, might watch it. But in terms of it like blowing up as a cult, I don't think so. Okay.
I agree with that. I think it's going to be in the same kind of like style of where like it's going to be moved around. I mean, now with streaming services, it's going to be like, hey, I saw this movie the other day kind of thing. Just like during its time, people would pass the DVD around, just like old school. So like, I would say it's going to probably be in the same kind of criteria of cult, like Waiting, which is another Ryan Reynolds banger.
Oh my God, Ryan
Waiting.
Gosling is so great in that.
Ryan Gosling was amazing.
Just like
that
Waiting,
movie.
exactly.
Waiting,
Waiting's
which
great.
I think is, I'll be honest, is better than this.
Mm-hmm.
Just because
Yeah.
I that was like, that and Clerks were like my Bible when I started working customer service. So I was just like, I relate to these movies very much. But nowadays, if you bring up Waiting, people might be like, oh yeah, I think I remember that one with Ryan Reynolds. So, I don't know, blah blah blah. But I think if it's on now with streaming, people might be like, hey, they'll give it a try. I think it'll have a smaller cult following. Like Fred said, it's not going to be Evil Dead. It's not going to be Princess Bride or anything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense.
So, any other final thoughts?
No, I think I would say I would recommend this movie. You can watch it at Christmas, or you can watch but it's not like a Christmas. Like, it is a Christmas movie, but it's not like you can only watch it at Christmas.
It's like Batman Returns.
I think it feels
Yeah,
like
like Batman
Christmas.
Returns.
It feels like Christmas.
It feels like Christmas
but I'm-
because you see the snow and you see him go back for the
but you
holidays
can really
with his
watch
family.
it at any time.
But yeah.
It's
better
not like
to
you're in a
think of
Scared
it as a
Stupid where you can
Christmas
only
movie.
watch it at a certain time.
Yeah,
of the year.
exactly. It's not meant to be just a Christmas movie. I think it's just
It could be
because
a Hanukkah movie.
Exactly.
Like the next one we're going to talk about, Arthur Christmas. I couldn't see watching that at any other point in the year.
Yeah.
Wait, I thought we were going to talk about Batman v Superman.
Oh.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. Hit that subscribe button on your podcasting app to make sure you are always following and being notified when a new episode of this show comes out. And continue to hear us babble. And please, if you are willing to give us a rating and a review, it really helps and lets us know what else you'd like to hear from us in this podcast, because we can always only get better with your help.
Yeah, please, because we'd like to get a sponsor eventually. That way we can upgrade our equipment.
Casper Mattresses,
Whoa.
where you at?
Casper, Purple Mattress,
Hims for Men.
Hims. Hey, Dollar Shave Club, I use their product. Come on.
Hey, believe me, we sell ourselves cheap. Come on, everybody.
Whatever you want. But honestly, no, we would love to hear from everybody from listening because
Yeah, we've gotten a few recommendations in our emails. So
Yes, please send
keep
throw
them
recommendations.
coming
Keep them coming.
throw it
because-
out there. I know somebody mentioned Doctor Who the movie, which was
And it's on the list, and
it's there. We'll get to it.
We'll get to
but
it.
We appreciate you guys.
Yes.
Throwing out recommendations. We love it.
Yeah, because we do
wanna
listen to you
hear from
guys, and we want to hear more from you.
Mhm. So once again, we are the Undercast Company, made up of myself, Ariel, and my brother Sergio,
Hi.
Fred Torres,
Hey, what's up?
and Alan
I
Torres,
saw, dude.
and Derek McDuff.
The one and only.
And we also have comic, DC, and convention content on our Nerd Incorporated YouTube page and Nerd Incorp on social medias. We have gaming and tech content on our District 6 YouTube and at District 6 on social media.
Check that out.
Yes.
And me and Derek have Marvel discussions on our Marvel podcast, Infinity Stones and Dragon Bones, which we're hoping to touch on the ending of the Jeff Loeb era soon.
Yep.
Then also, we were kind of just throwing it around before we recorded. We've been really into The Mandalorian.
Oh,
we might
yeah.
do something about that.
Yeah, that'll be coming
just
up soon.
Let us know what you think. If you're interested in hearing us talk about Mandalorian, we'd be really, we're all in love with it. We love the show.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let us know.
So we have new things on the horizon, and we'll keep you guys posted once they pop up. So with that, we'll be back soon with another film. So stay tuned, and thanks for being amazing.
Later.
See you in the life.
As my boy says, Kevin Smith, have a week.